Some ideas are brilliant. The wheel, sliced bread, the internet, they genuinely change the world. And then there are the other ideas. The ones so strange, so misguided, so spectacularly useless, you have to wonder how they ever got made in the first place. These aren't just bad ideas, they're monuments to failure, testaments to human creativity gone wonderfully, hilariously wrong. These are the inventions that solved problems nobody had, were made for a market that didn't exist, and in some cases were just plain dangerous. From a car that was also a boat, and terrible at being both, to a face mask designed to keep you from talking, history is littered with inventions so spectacularly useless, you'll be amazed they ever saw the light of day. Today we're counting down some of the most epic product fails and uncovering the hilarious and often surprising stories of why they flopped. We're going on a journey through time, from ancient gadgets to modern digital jokes, to find products so pointless, you'll wonder how anyone ever spent money on them. And these epic fails reveal more than you'd think about our own creativity, our bizarre priorities, and the absurd things we're willing to buy. Number 1. The DVD rewinder. Kicking off our list is an invention born from a beautiful misunderstanding of technology, the DVD rewinder. In the early 2000s, as we all shifted from clunky VHS tapes to sleek DVDs, a few clever people spotted a market opportunity. Or more accurately, they saw a problem that didn't exist and sold a solution for it. The idea was simple. After watching a DVD, you'd pop it into this little motorized gadget, hit a button, and it would spin the disc backward, rewinding it for the next person. Of course, anyone who's ever used a DVD knows this is completely pointless. Unlike VHS tapes that need to be physically wound back, DVDs are read by a laser and can jump to any point instantly. The invention was, in a technical sense, 100% useless. So why did anyone buy it? It was mostly sold as a gag gift, the perfect joke for that tech-challenged uncle who still couldn't figure out how to set the clock on his VCR. It was a clever prank that played on the muscle memory of a generation trained to be kind and rewind. The DVD rewinder wasn't a financial disaster. It was a conceptual one, a gleaming plastic monument to the gaps in our tech knowledge. It's a great reminder, before you invent a solution, it's probably a good idea to make sure the problem is real. Number 2. Diet water. If you thought the DVD rewinder was pointless, let me introduce you to something even more baffling. Diet water. Yes, you heard that right. A Japanese company called Sapporo launched Diet Water, which proudly advertised itself as calorie-free. This might sound reasonable until you remember one tiny fundamental fact of basic science. All water is calorie-free. The product was just bottled water with the word diet slapped on the label. The marketing geniuses behind this were clearly trying to cash in on the global obsession with diet culture. They figured consumers would be so drawn to the word diet that they'd completely overlook how redundant the product was. They were literally trying to create a new beverage category for people who felt that regular water just wasn't doing enough for their waistline. Predictably, the product was met with total ridicule and confusion, quickly becoming a running joke and a symbol of marketing gone mad. Diet water failed because it offered no benefit, no innovation, and no real purpose. It was a solution in search of a problem that never existed, trying to improve on a product that was already perfect. It just goes to show there are limits to branding. You can put a fancy label on something, but you can't trick people into believing there's value in a product that is, at its core, laughably flawed. Number 3. The pet rock. Sometimes, a useless invention isn't really a failure, at least not financially. Back in 1975, an advertising executive named Gary Dahl was in a bar, listening to his friends complain about how much work their pets were. In a flash of sarcastic genius, he announced that he had the perfect pet, a rock. It didn't need to be fed, walked, or cleaned up after. It was the ultimate low-maintenance companion. And just like that, the pet rock was born. The product was literally just a smooth rock, usually sourced from a beach in Mexico. But Dahl's brilliance wasn't the rock itself, it was the marketing. Each rock came in a cardboard box with air holes, nestled on a bed of straw, just like a real pet. The real masterpiece, though, was the 32-page instruction manual, a hilarious guide on how to care for and train your new, inanimate friend. It included commands like sit and stay, which of course the rock would perform perfectly every time. For a brief baffling moment, the pet rock was a cultural phenomenon. Dahl sold around 1.5 million of them in just 6 months, becoming a millionaire almost overnight. It was the ultimate fad, a perfect gag gift that poked fun at consumer culture itself. Of course, like all fads, it burned out fast. The market was saturated, the novelty wore off, and the pet rock became a piece of 70s kitsch. Its failure was its own built-in obsolescence. It was a one-liner, and once everyone got the joke, it was over. The lesson of the pet rock is a weird one. With brilliant marketing, you can sell literally anything, but a product with no real use is always destined to be a fleeting joke. Number 4. Microsoft Clippy. For anyone who used a computer in the late 90s, this next one needs no introduction. It was the googly-eyed animated paperclip that would pop up, uninvited, at the worst possible times. I'm talking, of course, about Clippy, the Microsoft Office assistant. Clippy was actually born from good intentions. Microsoft researchers noticed that new users were often overwhelmed by all the features in programs like Word, so they created an animated assistant that would try to help you out. The moment you started typing "Dear Sir" or "Madam," Clippy would bounce onto your screen asking, "It looks like you're writing a letter. Would you like help?" The problem was, Clippy wasn't very smart and it was incredibly annoying. It constantly interrupted your workflow, offered obvious advice, and was a real pain to get rid of. It felt less like a helpful assistant and more like a cheerful, persistent pest. The public reaction was overwhelmingly negative. Clippy became a running joke, a symbol of intrusive and poorly designed software. Microsoft eventually got the message and phased Clippy out, officially retiring him with Office XP. The story of Clippy teaches a huge lesson in design. Just because you can add a feature doesn't mean you should. Help should be there when a user asks for it, not forced on them. Clippy failed because he was designed to solve Microsoft's problem, making their software seem user-friendly, instead of solving the user's actual problems. Number 5. The Sinclair C5. Imagine a vehicle for the modern age. It's electric, eco-friendly, and designed to revolutionize personal transport. Sounds like something from today, right? Well, this was the vision of British inventor Sir Clive Sinclair back in 1985 with his creation, the Sinclair C5. The C5 was a one-person battery-powered tricycle, basically a low-slung plastic pod with handlebars under your knees. Sinclair, a genius who made his fortune with pocket calculators and home computers, believed he could create a whole new market for personal electric vehicles. He famously didn't believe in market research, preferring to just launch a product and create the demand himself. This turned out to be a massive mistake. The C5 launched with huge fanfare, but the public's reaction was brutal. It was sold as a real alternative to a car, but it was just so impractical. Its battery range was optimistically listed as 20 miles, but in the real world it was often closer to 5. It had a top speed of only 15 miles per hour, making it a slow-moving hazard on the road. And since it was completely open, it was a terrible fit for the notoriously rainy British weather. Drivers sat so low to the ground they were practically invisible to trucks, which led to huge safety concerns. It was a vehicle that wasn't safe enough for the road but too fast for the sidewalk. Sales were awful. Out of 14,000 units made, only about 5,000 were sold before the company went bankrupt just months after the launch. The Sinclair C5 was a product decades ahead of its time, but its failure was a lesson in hubris. A great vision without any practicality is just a fast track to failure. We're halfway through our list of glorious failures. These inventors might have missed the mark, but you have to admit, they went for it. What's the most useless product you've ever seen? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're enjoying this trip through the Museum of Bad Ideas, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. Number 6. The Fisk reading machine. Long before the Kindle or the iPad, another inventor dreamed of shrinking the world's books into a portable device. In the 1920s, a US Navy Rear Admiral named Bradley Fisk unveiled his invention, the Fisk reading machine. The problem Fisk wanted to solve was a real one. Books were heavy, bulky, and expensive. His solution was a little marvel of microengineering. The reading machine was a handheld metal device, held up to one eye like a fancy monocle. It used a powerful magnifying lens to read text that had been photographically shrunk onto tiny cards. Fisk claimed his device could fit a 100,000-word novel into a space 1/100th the size of a normal book. He truly envisioned a revolution where entire libraries could be carried in your pocket. So why aren't we all peering through tiny metal viewers today? The Fisk reading machine was clever, but it was also incredibly awkward to use. Reading with one eye through a tiny lens got tiring fast, and trying to navigate the microscopic print was a slow, painful process. While Fisk had correctly predicted the future of portable reading, his hardware was a total dead end. Around the same time, another innovation was taking over: the affordable paperback book. This much simpler, cheaper solution to bulky hardcovers completely overshadowed Fisk's complicated gadget. The machine was never mass-produced, and it remains a perfect example of how an over-engineered solution, no matter how smart, can be beaten by a simpler, more practical idea. Number 7. The parachute coat. Some inventions are useless, some are just bad ideas, and some are lethally, tragically flawed. That brings us to the story of Franz Reichelt, a French tailor who, in the early 20th century, became obsessed with creating a wearable parachute. As the age of aviation was just beginning, pilots had no reliable way to escape a failing plane. Reichelt, who became known as the Flying Tailor, designed a parachute coat, a bulky suit that was supposed to deploy a silk canopy when the wearer spread their arms. He did some early tests by dropping dummies from his fifth-floor apartment, and those seemed to go okay. Emboldened, he became convinced that the only thing his invention needed was a much higher starting point. So, he asked the Parisian police for permission to conduct a test from the Eiffel Tower. On February 4th, 1912, a crowd and newsreel cameras gathered at the base of the tower. The authorities had given him permission to test with a dummy. But when Reichelt arrived, he made a shocking announcement. He was going to test the suit himself. His friends and officials begged him not to, but Reichelt was unshakably confident. He climbed to the first platform, 187 feet up, hesitated for just a moment, and then jumped. The parachute coat failed completely. Instead of opening, it just wrapped around him, and he plummeted to the frozen ground below, dying instantly. The whole horrific event was caught on film. Reichelt's failure was absolute and final, a grim reminder that overconfidence and a lack of safe, rigorous testing can be a fatal combination. Number 8. Radioactive health products. In the early 20th century, a brand new scientific discovery captured the world's imagination: radioactivity. After it was discovered by scientists like Marie Curie, many people came to believe that radiation had almost magical, life-giving powers. And where there's public fascination, there are always entrepreneurs ready to cash in. This led to an era of radioactive quackery, with dozens of dangerous and useless products flooding the market. Companies sold radioactive toothpaste, hair cream, and even chocolate, all promising to invigorate the body. One of the most famous brands was a French line of cosmetics called Thoradia. Their creams and powders, which supposedly contained thorium and radium, promised to give users a healthy, radiant glow. To add a layer of credibility, the company was co-founded by a doctor, Alfred Curie, who, it should be noted, had no relation to the famous scientists. But perhaps the most infamous of these products was Radithor, sold in the 1920s. It was, quite simply, water laced with radium. Its creator marketed it as a cure for everything from arthritis to impotence. One of its biggest fans was a wealthy American socialite and athlete named Eben Byers. He drank nearly 1,400 bottles of Radithor over several years. The result was horrific. The radium deposited in his bones, and his body literally began to decay from the inside out. His jaw had to be surgically removed, and he died a slow, agonizing death. Byers' tragic case finally woke up the public and regulators to the extreme dangers of these products, and the era of radioactive quackery came to an end. It remains one of history's darkest examples of how scientific discovery can be twisted by greed with deadly consequences. Number 9. Coffee pods. Not all useless inventions seem that way at first. Some become failures over time as their hidden costs become clear. A perfect modern example is the single-use coffee pod. When the Keurig K-Cup machine was introduced, it was hailed as a revolution in convenience, a perfect cup of coffee in under a minute with no grinding, no measuring, and no messy cleanup. The concept was created in the 1990s by John Sylvan. He originally designed it for offices, where people wanted different kinds of coffee without brewing a whole pot. The idea exploded, and soon Keurig machines were in millions of homes. The problem, though, began piling up in our landfills. The original K-Cups were made of a composite plastic and foil that wasn't biodegradable and was nearly impossible to recycle. Billions of these tiny plastic cups are thrown away every single year, creating a mind-boggling amount of waste. The invention became a victim of its own success and a symbol of our disposable culture. But what's most telling is what the inventor himself thinks. John Sylvan has publicly said he regrets his invention. "I feel bad sometimes that I ever did it," he admitted in an interview. He sold his shares in the company years ago for just $50,000 and doesn't even own a Keurig machine. He calls the pods a cigarette for coffee, a single-serve delivery mechanism for an addictive substance. The coffee pod is a modern fable, an invention made for convenience that has failed our environment, a success so huge that even its own creator wishes it never existed. Number 10. Animal trials. Our final entry isn't a physical object, but a different kind of invention. A legal process so bizarre it's hard to believe it was ever real. For several centuries in medieval Europe, from about the 13th to the 18th century, animals were put on trial for committing crimes. And these weren't just for show, they were formal legal proceedings. Court records from France, Switzerland and Germany show pigs being tried for harming children, dogs for biting, and even insects like weevils for destroying crops. In many cases, the animal defendants were given the same rights as humans. They were assigned a defense lawyer, a summons was issued, and witnesses were called to testify. In one famous case from 1457, a sow was tried and found guilty of murder, while her piglets were acquitted because there was no proof they had helped. So why would anyone do this? The practice came from a worldview where things like tragedy and disaster were often blamed on some kind of evil or demonic force, and animals could be seen as instruments of that evil. The trials were a community's way of asserting order and assigning blame when things went wrong. To us, it seems totally absurd, but at the time, animal trials were a serious social invention. It failed, not because it was impractical, but because our entire understanding of justice, morality, and the natural world evolved. It might just be the ultimate useless invention, a complex system designed to solve a problem that existed only in the minds of the people who created it. So there you have it, from radioactive face cream to a court of law for caterpillars. The history of invention isn't just a straight line of successes, it's also a wonderfully strange and hilarious story of failure. These products and ideas, as useless as they were, tell us so much about who we are. They reflect the fears and beliefs of their time, the irresistible pull of a good gimmick, and our undying hope that a simple product can solve our most complex problems. And while we can laugh at the DVD rewinder or shudder at the thought of Radithor, these failures actually serve a purpose. They're the cautionary tales, the dead ends on the roadmap of progress. Every failed invention, in its own way, clears a path for the next better idea. They remind us that creativity is messy, innovation is unpredictable, and sometimes the most brilliant idea is just a pet rock waiting to happen. What did you think of our list? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell for more journeys into the weirdest corners of history. Thanks for watching.